Welcome to Heat Check. This week we're going to look at the top 10 highest selling vintage items from the Durango Vintage Festivus. This episode is brought to you by WeBuyOldJeans.com. More about them later. Now before we get here to number 10, if you're not familiar with the Durango Vintage Festivus, it's a annual Festivus or annual festival celebrating all things denim, all things vintage. It's a lot of fun. They live stream a lot of it so you can watch it in the future years. Typically happens in September. But these are the top 10 highest selling items from their auction that they run during the festival. So let's go ahead and dig in. Here we have first at number 10, we have these pre-World War II Levi's 501 bucklebacks. This we do not see very often. Here you can see the buckle back on the 501. Obviously some damage. A lot of these are going to be like mine finds, bando finds, stuff like that. So you're not going to probably see the most pristine stuff on this one. But look at this. The patch still attached. That is incredible. I mean, all things considered, you have a leg torn here, which is a real bummer. Because otherwise, I think these would probably be pretty wearable. Because even though there's distressing and holes and stuff, they look like they're patched pretty well. Check out the details here. It's not letting us zoom up too much more. Yeah, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. This is like older than what I'm normally used to seeing. Even on the heat checks, some cool repairs there. Look at this patch. It's incredible that this patch has survived. Honestly, with all the condition of the rest of the jean, this patch being there, it's pretty incredible when you often see these patches jerkify, which probably just means that this person didn't ever really wash the jeans. They just wore them and repaired them. The buckle looks almost suspiciously too clean, as if the buckle was replaced, but I'm not sure they mentioned anything like that. There is the red tab, which does give us, a good sort of outer bound on these. These are not too terribly old, but certainly in that late 30s, early 40s era. Let's see if there's any other details. There's the leg. Beautiful piece of denim history here. Would love to come across one of these and hold these someday. But these sold for $3,200 plus a 15% buyer's premium, which you'll have to add on to each one of these as we go. So that makes their price a little bit more expensive. The estimate was $5,000 to $10,000. Obviously we didn't get there, but these estimates are often a little bit overinflated just to sort of help the sale. But this one is beautiful for number 10. And then at number 9, we have a item that like way blew out their estimate here. We have this exquisite, which I think is just an adjective here, custom handmade denim jacket with lace selvage. So look at this thing. This thing is beautiful. The condition is fantastic. They date it to 1915 to 1930. I feel like it could even be earlier than that. I'm not an expert on all things, antique denim. So I could be wrong here, but just something about it feels like it could have been a bit earlier than that. Looks like maybe a repair or an extension or something. It almost looks like two types of denim, or this was rolled back or something like that. But take a look in here. You can see that big old selvage down to the middle. It almost looks like is that the lace? Like a weird selvage. This is just an unusual piece. That's why look at these ties. These are the things that these clasps essentially that tie the jacket together. No zipper, anything like that. This is an old style trick here, but beautiful garment. I don't know much about it because it is probably a custom made here. No branding or anything like that, but absolutely beautiful piece. And this one blew the estimate out of the water. This one sold for $33.50 with the estimate only being $1,000. So clearly this was a showstopper and got a lot of people's attention. All right, at number 8, we have the JCPenney's Formo suspender button buckle back jeans. Take a look at these. These look beautiful. The fade is to die for on here. Love the whiskering. The fading is great. You've got that tobacco cans in both pockets. You can see the arcuate on here. take a look closer. Let's see if they show us a better picture here. Yeah, you can see the arcuate looks suspiciously a lot like Levi's, and that's because it was. This was not uncommon for brands at this time period to rip off more directly some of the biggest names like Levi's. So this is almost essentially a direct rip-off, obviously. We have suspender buttons and belt loops. And that leather patch just looks very familiar, very similar to the 501 we saw earlier. That's because they intentionally were doing that. But they foremost created some of the more higher quality sort of 501 replicas here. And so this one is a heavier denim, and so this is a good piece for those who are looking to maybe get in a little cheaper than the Levi's price. You can definitely get a high quality denim jean from this era if you go with one of the sort of off brands. Anyways, this one did well. It blew out the estimate as well. This one sold for $3,500. All right, then we have the Levi's 501 jean war rationing area without the arcuate stitching. So this is probably a pair that would have had the stitching painted on. And it's possibly not even a 501, to be honest. It could be the 503B. Should have been the youth size here. The fade, obviously, look at those lines. I mean, all this stuff looks unbelievable. Super cool looking. All over, it's like brilliant. And the condition looks pretty fantastic as well. Let's take a look. The patch here looks suspiciously in good condition. Having owned one of these shortly after this era, knowing the patch being so thin, this is a tough one right here. But brilliant. Take a look. There are some repairs. Again, this is not uncommon for this era. Look at these. Oh my gosh, the whiskering and fade on these jeans is incredible. They were folded up in like the most perfect way. The size is pretty small, 26, 27. That's why we think it's probably a 503B. But pretty brilliant pair, but probably would have done better at a different somewhere else. But this one sold for $3,700 with an estimate between $2,000 and $4,000. Still a good sale. Probably a pretty good deal. Beautiful pair of Levi's. All right, next up we have this exceptional two-piece buckleback workwear outfit. Very rare striped fabric and denim heavy cotton. So let's take a look here. Yeah, this is definitely super cool. Look at that fabric. The striped fabric is beautiful. This is probably not quite denim per se. It's maybe some sort of heavy cotton material. I'm not really sure. It's hard to be too sure. Obviously, we had a patch at some point, so I don't think they really know who the brand is. But they date these from 1900 to 1920. Looks like we have a 20-inch pit, and the pants are a 29-30, so someone could actually wear this. Take a look at the backside. Kind of hard with the contrast on this to see the details. You kind of get up close and personal, but you can see the buttons there. You can see. Let's take a look. Yeah, sort of a cropped top. It almost feels like a little bit, which was very common for jackets and blouses at the time. But beautiful pair, or beautiful set here for sure. This one did pretty well, right in the middle of the estimate here at $4,000. Excellent, really cool pair. Love to see stuff like this making a list. All right, a brand that we often see on our normal heat check list, or at least fairly often, is Carhartt. And here we have some early Carhartt with removable famous heart buttons. Let's take a look. We've seen jackets similar to this sell on our normal heat check. There's the brand, and there are those beloved Carhartt heart buttons. Maybe one missing. It's kind of hard to say. Some damage, obviously. This is, I think, between, they say 1920s, could be 1930s. There's no chin strap. It doesn't appear, so kind of hard to say. To be specific and not super expert on this old Carhartt, but I do know that these buttons are beloved and they tend to raise the value significantly. They're definitely something that collectors and wearers and enthusiasts look out for. Beautiful jacket right here for sure. Let's take a look. It sold for above the estimate in this case. This one sold for $6,500. So maybe you couldn't make it to the Durango Vintage Festivus to unload and sell all your vintage denim. Well, we have a recommendation for you, and that is WeBuyOldJeans.com. These guys offer an excellent service, super simple process, and very competitive pricing. Why bother with the middleman with eBay and dealing with fees and scams when you can sell direct to these guys? Check them out, WeBuyOldJeans.com. All right, then we have another war rationing era of the 501XX added suspender buttons. So somebody added this, so we don't have an arcuate, most likely is what they're trying to tell us here. Yeah, no arcuate. Patch is gone. These, look at the size of these guys. 37 by 38. I have it on good authority that these are possibly not even 501s technically. But they could actually be the S502XX. But not really sure about that. It is hard to be completely sure about this since the patch is gone. But really cool pair, pretty intact. Some damage, obviously. You can see some. They kept their tobacco tin up in their front pocket. Their front pocket guys here. Beautiful pair. Got lots of cool fading, cool distressing. Looks like the crotch is not blown out, which is a good sign. We've got some rusty buttons there, so watch yourself when you're buttoning it up. But this one also did pretty well. It went on the upper side of the estimate and sold for $8,000. All right, next up we have then at number 3 we have a somewhat controversial one. We'll talk about that here in a second. We have the Levi's Sunset brand Wabash fabric chore coat. Wabash fabric is this striped fabric right here. It was thought at one point that Levi's didn't actually ever use this type of fabric, but then some pieces came up that suggested maybe they did. But this one is difficult because obviously the branding, the patch, the label, let's take a look at the label, is pretty much nondescript. We can't see anything about this piece, but we do see the buttons, and here is a Sunset LS Co button, which would have been appropriate for a jacket like this. The Sunset brand date here is 1900 to 1920 era, but you'll see here we have some issues. If we go look at the buttons, let's get a little closer. There's another Sunset button, but look, we have a Underhill button, which is odd because I thought this was a Sunset piece. And if you go down here, you'll actually see there's a Carhartt button. Yeah, so we've got multiple buttons from different companies, and they could all have possibly made this potentially. So that's the controversy. A lot of people do believe that this is officially Levi's, and it's probably a good bet. You have more Sunset buttons than you do the other buttons, and the other buttons may have just been replacements. But it does call some of it into question and make it probably harder for somebody who is interested in spending a lot of money on a jacket like this to really dig deep into the pockets. So this one went below their estimate, unfortunately, and probably because of some of the confusion and the controversy and the nondescript nature of exactly who produced this jacket. But this one sold for $12,000. All right, at number 2, we're seeing some denim that we have never seen on our normal heat check list, because this is some of the premium stuff, some of the stuff that collectors keep. Obviously, super damaged in a lot of cases, but these are very sought after. Anyway, we have the Miner's Cloth Patch Levi's buckleback blue jeans. Take a look at this. Let's get a look at this. I believe these are the 201s. Yeah, it looks like these were a mine find from dated between 1900 and 1910. I do believe these are probably like a 201, which would have been like the more inexpensive version of the Levi's denim. Here, the lot is washed out, so you can't really tell. But that patch, look how beautiful that patch is. still shining after all these years, after over 100 years. Beautiful. Obviously, we had the buckle back, which was common and standard at the time. Damage on this one. You're probably not going to end up wearing this one. Look at that thick selvage. I don't know if they show us a good picture of it. Yeah, look how thick that selvage is right there. So much more thick than later iterations of Levi's jeans. Those buttons are beautiful. Let's take a look. Looks like the on these the rivets were maybe blank. Hard to say. I think that was not that strange at the time. I'm not sure that I can't remember when they added branded rivets, but that's not throwing us off here. But absolutely beautiful specimen of 100-year-old Levi's denim jeans. These were up on the upper end of the estimate at $22,000. It looks like they only got one single bid, one internet bid. So started out at $50. Obviously, there was probably going to be a reserve, and someone bid $22,000, and no one was going to try to top that at this point. Beautiful pair. Now at number 1, we have the oldest known 1800s vintage Levi's, quote unquote Levi's, denim 501 jeans dated to 1873. Yes, the famous 1873, in which the patent was given to Levi's. So, wow, there are a lot of hype around these jeans. I do believe these were originally a mine find, potentially. Hard to say, I can't remember the story. I do believe that Britt, the guy that puts on this Festivus, actually did pay for these, bought these, if I remember correctly. I think he said he paid $130,000 for these. There is a little bit of controversy, though, over these jeans. There's not anything that directly indicates that these are Levi's per se, like no branding. So everything is basically non-branded at this point. The construction looks correct, but who's to say someone wasn't ripping off Levi's and basically stealing their construction and just building their own? It is really hard to say if that is the case, but these clearly were found somewhere in some sort of mine. So I believe Levi's themselves, the historian Tracy Panic, actually believes that these are legit Levi's. There are a lot of people that have weighed in on this and suggest that they are, and I think they probably are. But because there's nothing super clear and indicating, obviously there is going to be a little bit of controversy no matter what. Look at that thick selvage. Absolutely incredible. You can see all of the rivets are clearly corroded. There is the crotch rivet on that one. Absolutely incredible pair. This is a historic piece. These are absolute legends. Though the controversy does weigh a little bit. These are the oldest known jeans, and they were estimated to sell between $150,000 and $300,000. And apparently, Britt paid $130,000, and these only sold for $100,000. Which, of course, is a ton of money, so let's not get too wrapped up in it, obviously. Perhaps the controversy, the confusion as to whether or not it is actually Levi's weighed on the price. It's quite possible. Well, it's certainly possible, because if these were in better condition and well-known as Levi's, or clearly Levi's, then, yeah, these probably would have sold for more. Or most certainly would sell for more. But either way, it's so cool to have the oldest known pair of potentially, most likely Levi's on this list. So congratulations to the Durango Vintage Festivus for a successful auction and festival. I look forward to one day attending for sure. And that is the number 1 on the heat check list, and perhaps the number 1 on any denim heat check list ever. But time will tell.